Unbeatable aliens invade Earth. The Zorgans descended upon Earth like a plague of locusts, their sleek obsidian ships darkening the skies. This race of conquering aliens had swept across the galaxy, subjugating countless worlds with their advanced technology and merciless tactics. No civilization had withstood their onslaught. The people of Earth watched in horror as the invaders laid waste to the planet's defenses with devastating ease. The Zorgans' energy weapons sliced through the most fortified military bases like a hot knife through butter. Their impenetrable shielding shrugged off nuclear missiles like pebbles off a tank. Hope turned to despair as the aliens marched across continents, major cities capitulating within days. Humanity's armies made valiant stands in the shattered remains of London, Moscow, Tokyo, and New York. But again and again, the Zorgans' technological and numerical superiority crushed all resistance. The aliens seemed to almost toy with their outmatched opponents, extending the conquest to savor the humans' anguish. With world governments collapsing and billions dead or fleeing, pockets of survivors hid wherever they could. Remote islands, deep caves, forgotten bunkers. They huddled together in the darkness, scavenging for whatever scraps of food and supplies remained. Most had given up, resigned to their grim fate. Humanity teetered on the precipice of total annihilation. But even in the darkest hour, the unquenchable human spirit endured. Not all were content to cower in the shadows awaiting the inevitable end. Some still dared to resist the alien conquerors. Ragtag bands of rebels began to organize, determined to fight for the survival of their species against impossible odds. In a frozen cave carved into the Norwegian tundra, one such group lit a flickering lamp and unfurled a tattered map. Their leader, Captain Samantha Reeves, traced a finger over the rough parchment. Her hazel eyes gleamed with grim determination in the dim light. "Here, here, and here," she murmured, indicating 3 red X marks. "These are the weak points we've observed in their patrols on the surface." Her small team of resistance fighters leaned in, their gaunt faces streaked with grime but still defiant. They were the remnants of NATO's special forces, spies, and survivalists who had found each other after the fall. They had no illusions about the slim chances of victory, but they were all driven by the primal need to defy the invaders, to rage against the dying of humanity's light. "We may not have their technology or numbers," Reeves continued, "but this will be a new kind of war. We'll strike hard and fade away before they know what hit them. We'll become the monsters that haunt their nightmares." The soldiers nodded along with her, drawing strength from her stubborn refusal to surrender. Reeves had a gift for leadership, keeping them focused and motivated in the face of overwhelming despair. They'd follow her into hell itself, which, as they gazed out at the Zorgan ships hovering in the ashen skies, seemed to be exactly where they were. Reeves rose, tucking a strand of her copper hair into her cap. She unslung her weapon, an M401 carbine scavenged from an abandoned NATO depot. Checking the magazine, she looked each of her soldiers in the eye, holding their gazes. The Zorgans believe they've already won, that we're just insects to be crushed beneath their heels. They think we'll simply lie down and accept our fate. A humorless smile tugged at her chapped lips, a smile that promised defiance to the bitter end. They're about to find out just how wrong they are. They may have conquered 1,000 worlds before, but they've never faced an enemy like humanity. It's time we taught them the fury of a species backed into a corner. We'll show them that human courage and audacity can achieve the impossible, that we'll brave any hardship, sacrifice anything, to defend our home. This is our planet, our people, and we'll fight to our last breath to save them from these alien bastards. Lock and load, people. We've got some Zorgan ass to kick. With that, Reeves strode toward the cave exit, her rifle cradled in her arms. Her loyal band of survivors fell in behind her, their exhausted faces now lit with the fire of renewed purpose. They knew this was likely a suicide mission, but if they were to die, they would die on their feet, taking as many of the alien invaders with them as they could. The resistance had begun. Humans rally and resist. Reeves crept through the rubble of what had once been downtown Oslo, keeping low to stay hidden in the lengthening shadows. In the months since the invasion, once vibrant city centers had been reduced to eerie graveyards of abandoned vehicles and collapsed buildings. The Zorgan's disintegrator weapons made short work of any structures that defied them. Her four comrades ghosted along beside her, stepping carefully to avoid loose debris that might alert nearby alien patrols. They moved like specters in their urban camouflage, faces darkened with grease paint and soot. Each was loaded down with as much ammunition and explosives as they could physically carry. The Zorgan garrison wasn't hard to spot once they neared the city center. The aliens had converted a soccer stadium into their local headquarters, its once manicured pitch now rutted by the tread of their heavy tracked vehicles. The arena lights blazed harshly in the gathering twilight, powered by the aliens' portable fusion generators. Reeves bellied up to the crumbling foundation of a collapsed office tower across the street, peeking through the rubble with a battered set of binoculars. She watched the regular foot patrols of Zorgan soldiers march by, their segmented ebony armor glinting in the fading light. Their distinctive energy rifles, capable of punching holes through solid steel, made mockeries of the human soldiers' ballistic weapons. At the north entrance of the stadium, a steady stream of ground vehicles flowed in and out, bringing in resources looted from the conquered city. Reeves' eyes narrowed as she watched supply trucks make their deliveries and speed off to collect more. "There," she said softly to the huddled group, pointing with a gloved finger. "That's our way in." Her rifle slung over her shoulder, she hurried to the desiccated husk of an overturned semi-trailer. The truck's cargo had long since been picked clean by desperate survivors after the initial invasion. The rest of the team took up covered positions nearby, weapons trained outward. "All right, listen up," Reeves said, keeping her voice low as they leaned over the rough sketches she'd scrawled in the dust on the cracked pavement. "We time it right, we can jump on one of those supply trucks as it's leaving. From inside, we'll have a short window to do as much damage as we can before they're onto us." She looked from face to face, seeing their clenched jaws and flinty eyes. These were men and women who'd seen their entire species brought to the brink of extinction. They were ready to strike back, whatever the cost. "Jamie, you'll rig the truck bed with the C4. Set the timers for 5 minutes so we have time to bail out. Yvette, you're on overwatch with the RPG. If things go south, light up any Zorgan armor that comes after us. Kyle and Marco, you're with me to lay down covering fire and buy Jamie time." They each nodded grimly, checking their weapons and equipment one final time. This was what they had trained for all their lives, though none had imagined facing an alien foe. Reeves glanced up at the darkening skies, seeing the first glinting stars. She wondered briefly how many of those twinkling lights hosted planets that had already fallen to the Zorgans. How many trillions now suffered under their yoke? The thought hardened her resolve. This fight was bigger than them, bigger than Earth itself. If humanity fell, the galaxy might never shake off the chains of Zorgan rule. "Remember, we get separated. Rally Point is the Jellarisan cave network outside the city," she reminded them, tamping down her own fear and doubt. There could be no room for that now. "Stay fast, stay low, trust your training and trust each other. We'll get through this together." With a final round of clasped hands and clipped hooahs, they dispersed to their positions. Reeves unslung her rifle and chambered a round, the distinctive click impossibly loud in the preternatural stillness. She forced her breathing to slow, her senses extending outward. The familiar cool weight of her rifle was soothing in her hands. The acrid scent of distant fires mingled with the decaying stench of the dead city. Somewhere, a lone crow called mournfully into the crepuscular light. It was almost time. Her finger caressed the trigger as she sighted down the cracked scope at the Zorgan perimeter. She whispered a fragment of Henley, the poetry or touchstone, against the madness of this new reality. "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." With a deep breath, she centered herself in the moment, in the mission. Everything else fell away until there was only the target and the iron certainty of their purpose. Let's dance, you alien sons of bitches. Alien overconfidence and underestimation. In the lavishly appointed command center of the Zorgan flagship, Commander Xolthar lounged in his levitating throne, idly swirling a glass of Quillian nectar. The holographic screens around him displayed scenes of smoldering cities and crumbling resistance from around the fallen Earth. He allowed himself a rasping chuckle as he watched a handful of humans flee before the advancing tread of a Zorgan assault walker, its sweeping energy beams slicing them down one by one. Such pitiful, frail creatures, hardly worth the effort of hunting down. But the Imperator was not one to leave a conquest half-finished. "Commander, incoming transmission from the Earth garrison," one of his subordinates announced, its lower arms flying across the crystalline control panel. On screen, Xolthar rumbled, straightening slightly. The hologram shimmered and resolved into the visage of Sub-Commander Xyloth, the captain's chitinous features pinched with annoyance. Behind him, the command center of the Oslo Stadium base buzzed with activity. "Report, Sub-Commander. Are the humans proving troublesome?" Xolthar asked, not quite keeping the amusement from his flanged voice. "Hardly, Commander," Xyloth replied stiffly. "But I am growing weary of these gnats and their pointless hit-and-run attacks. They achieve nothing but their own deaths." Xolthar made a dismissive gesture with a primary claw. "They cling to the delusion that they can somehow reclaim their pathetic ball of dirt. Let them have their futile gestures of defiance. It will make their ultimate subjugation all the sweeter." Xyloth shifted in apparent discomfort. "With respect, Commander, I believe it would be prudent to escalate our efforts to quash these pockets of resistance, if we allow them to fester." "Are you questioning the strategic assessment of your commander?" Xolthar asked mildly, but with a sudden edge to his multitonal voice. The sub-commander stiffened. "No, Commander. I misspoke. I will double patrols and await your further guidance." "Good. Crush the humans underfoot like the insects they are. There will be no glory in this, only tedium. But we will fulfill our duty to the Imperator. The fleet departs for Centauri Gamma shortly to subdue the Kyrathians. I trust you can handle one primitive species in my absence." Xyloth snapped an elaborate salute with both left arms. "It will be done, Commander. See that it is. The Imperator has no use for failure." Xolthar cut the transmission with an impatient wave. He gestured languidly to another aide waiting silently nearby. "Bring me the casualty reports from the initial invasion. I require an amusing diversion." As the aide scurried to obey, Xolthar reclined into his throne, draining his glass of nectar. These humans were tenacious, he had to admit. But like all lesser species, they would learn their place beneath the heel of the Zorgan Imperium. It was only a matter of time. Unbeknownst to the arrogant Zorgan commander, even as he mocked the humans' refusal to submit, a small team of those very insects was already inside his Oslo garrison. Reeves, Jamie, Kyle, and Marco crouched low in the shadowy recesses of the commandeered cargo transport, the truck rumbling slowly into the heart of the alien base. Around them, crates of looted supplies were stacked high, the bounty of a conquered world. But nestled among the alien plunder was a more deadly payload. Bricks of C4 plastic explosives, wired to remote detonators and counting down with merciless precision. Reeves kept her eyes locked on her wrist chronometer, the luminescent numerals ticking away the seconds. Her joints ached from contorting herself between the larger shipping containers, but she dared not shift and risk drawing attention. They had managed to breach the perimeter by clinging to the undercarriage of the lumbering cargo hauler as it passed through the security cordon. Jamie had nearly been crushed by the massive armored wheels before hauling himself into concealment at the last instant. Marco sported a livid bruise across his cheek, where a sentry drone had slammed him into the pavement during his desperate scramble aboard. But they were in. They'd struck the first blow. The thought sent a thrill of vicious pride through Reeves' veins. For all their vaunted technology and conquest, The Zorgans were just as vulnerable to stealth and guile as any other foe. Their arrogance would be their undoing. The truck shuddered to a halt in what her mental schematic placed as the main motor pool. The distant clank and hum of Zorgan machinery echoed through the cavernous space. Here, their mighty war machines were serviced, refueled, and rearmed. And here, they would strike a blow that would send shockwaves to the stars themselves. They would show the galaxy that humanity would not go quietly into the night. Reeves held her clenched fist up slowly, meeting the grim but determined gazes of her comrades in the dim light filtering through the tarp above. 3 minutes to detonation. It was time to send these alien invaders a wake-up call they'd never forget, to remind them that for all their super-advanced weapons and planet-crushing ships, they'd never before faced an enemy like the human race, an enemy that would fight to the last breath, that would sacrifice anything and everything to defend their homeworld. The Zorgan garrison was about to have a very, very bad day. Humans unlock alien secrets. The explosion ripped through the Zorgan base like the fist of an angry god. One moment, the armored behemoths of the alien war machine sat dormant in their berths, pulsing with malevolent energy. The next, they were engulfed in a maelstrom of fire and shrapnel as the human explosives detonated deep within the heart of the installation. Reeves and her team were already moving as the first thunderous boom shook the stadium to its alien-reinforced foundations. They burst from the smoldering wreckage of the supply truck, weapons spitting defiant death, muzzle flashes strobing in the smoke-choked air. Zorgan soldiers, caught utterly off guard, fell like mown wheat before the fusillade. Violet ichor sprayed across the buckled walls as high-velocity rounds found gaps in their exoskeletal armor. For a few precious seconds, the humans owned the battlefield, their guns roaring a primal challenge to the stars themselves. But the moment of surprise could only last so long. An eerie klaxon began to wail, alien voices rising in oscillating screeches of alarm and fury. From every shadowed recess and curving corridor, Zorgan warriors poured forth, energy weapons humming with deadly intent. Fall back. Reeves roared over the cacophony, laying down a blistering barrage of suppressing fire as her team scrambled for the dubious shelter of the shattered Zorgan vehicles. Bolts of searing light crackled overhead, ionizing the smoke-laden air. They leapfrogged from wreck to twisted wreck, covering each other with disciplined bursts of fire as they made for the gaping wound of the perimeter blasted open by the initial explosion. The Zorgans rallied swiftly, lances of energy stitching the ground around the humans' desperate flight. Marco cried out as an energy bolt seared across his thigh, the smell of charred flesh mingling with the acrid stench of burning metal and plastic. He stumbled, his rifle clattering to the ground. Without missing a beat, Kyle slung the wounded man's arm over his broad shoulders, half-dragging him to the dubious shelter of a flipped alien troop transport. Reeves and Janey laid down a withering crossfire, buying precious seconds for their wounded comrade. Zorgan warriors fell before their precise headshots, ichor splattering the blasted pavement. "Cover," Jamie yelled, lobbing a frag grenade towards a knot of advancing aliens. The explosive detonated in a spray of shrapnel and viscous green blood, buying a few more strides. At last they reached the smoking ruin of the perimeter wall, clambering over the twisted metal into the ruined cityscape beyond. Yvette emerged from the shadows of a bombed-out storefront, her features tight with relief and fear. "I saw the explosion. Been trying to raise you on comms," she said breathlessly, shouldering her carbine to help support Marco's other side. "Radio got fried," Reeves replied tersely, reloading her rifle with quick, efficient movements. "We need to move now. Our window's closing fast." In the distance, the guttural roars of Zorgan hovertanks reverberated off the shattered facades of Oslo's fallen grandeur. The aliens would be hunting them mercilessly now, furious at this brazen strike at their very heart. The ragtag band of human survivors limped and stumbled through the rubble-strewn streets, putting as much distance as they could manage between themselves and the burning Zorgan base. Marco gritted his teeth against the pain, leaving a dribbled trail of crimson in their wake. By the time they reached the secluded entrance to the cave network that served as their hidden redoubt, they were staggering with exhaustion, pushed beyond human endurance by adrenaline and sheer desperate determination. They collapsed onto the cool stone, chests heaving like bellows, as the heavy camouflaged hatch ground shut behind them, plunging them into blessed darkness. For a few precious moments, the only sound was the rasp of labored breathing and the distant dripping of water from the stalactites. Reeves allowed herself a single victorious fist pump before hauling herself up to check on Marco's injury. As Jamie helped her cut away the charred fabric and apply a field dressing, she met her people's eyes one by one, nodding slowly. "We did it," she said simply, her voice rough with fatigue and emotion. "We showed those alien bastards that Earth isn't going to roll over for them." That was just the beginning. Kyle barked a laugh, wincing as he prodded at a plasma burn across his ribs. "I think we got their attention, Cap. They're gonna come down on us hard now." "Let them," Yvette said fiercely, her eyes gleaming in the light of the chem lamps. "We'll bleed them every step of the way." Reeves looked to the pile of scavenged Zorgon tech heaped in the corner of their cave. Plasma rifles, portable computers, fragments of armor, all jealously hoarded prizes from their campaign of asymmetric warfare. She gestured to it with a soot-streaked chin. "Get some rest while you can, and get that stuff to Haskins and his Jeeks ASAV. If we can crack their tech, figure out how it works and how to beat it, we might just have a shot at this." She hunkered down, running a loving hand over her battered carbine. She could still see the flames reflecting off the alien alloys, hear the dying screeches of Zorgon warriors. A savage, predatory grin split her face. When these ET mothers invaded, they thought they'd found easy pickings. Just one more primitive species to beat down and subjugate. She reached out to clasp the hands of her team, her family, drawing strength from their calloused grips. Her voice was low and deadly. "They're about to learn just how wrong they were. We'll teach them the hard way, to their sorrow, what it means to face humanity when our back's to the wall. This is our world, and we're damn well gonna make them bleed for every inch of it." In that dank, dripping cave, a flicker of hope took hold, a candle against the vast dark of the universe. The embers of resistance, fanned by Reeves and her indomitable crew, burst into defiant flame. Haskins and his ad hoc brain trust of engineers, hackers, and rogue scientists tore into the Zorgon tech with a fevered intensity, desperate to unravel the secrets of the alien science. Plasma cutters and quantum computers hummed day and night as they sought the key that might turn the tide of eons of alien tyranny. And in the depths of the Norwegian forests and mountains, in 100 other secret camps and redoubts across the planet, the human resistance grew. The flame of defiance spread, passed in furtive whispers and desperate radio relays. For the first time since the Zorgons darkened the skies of Earth, the last free dregs of humanity dared to hope. To believe that this fight wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The tide turns. All right, folks, listen up. Reeves strode through the bustling command center like a general of old as technicians, soldiers, and strategists snapped to attention. In the months since their blitz on the Oslo base, this cavern had transformed from a dank hole into something nearer the beating heart of humanity's last desperate gambit. Scavenged computers, hastily welded into ramshackle arrays, blinked and thrummed with desperate purpose. Each was crewed by hollow-eyed hackers and engineers poring over streams of data, the lifeblood of their insurgency. Above them, the arching stone was lost in a haze of chem smoke and dangling cables. The once bare walls were plastered with images of crying children, scorched cities, fallen comrades. Every human needed a reminder of what, and who, they were fighting for, the cost of failure. "We've cracked it," Reeves announced without preamble, slamming a battered alien data core onto the central holotable. A ragged cheer went up, balled fists thrust towards the unseen stars in defiance. "Haskins, you beautiful nerd," Kyle whooped from the back. "I could kiss your scrawny ass." The gaunt engineer flipped a jaunty bird in reply, but he was grinning like a madman. With shaking hands, he slotted the Zorgon core into a makeshift interface. Instantly, the table sprang to glowing life, schematics and equations dancing in the air between them. That last raid on their regional HQ in Budapest, Haskins said, awe-suffusing his reedy voice. We hit the motherlode. The quantum key to their command and control protocols. Reeves leaned in, her ice chip eyes reflecting alien numbers. Can we access it? Hijack their systems? Yvette, sporting a livid scar across her dark features, but still unbowed, flashed a fierce grin. Can, and will, Cap. We'll turn their weapons against them. A slow, savage smile spread across Reeves' face as she looked from the hologram to her gathered soldiers. No, her warriors. They'd been forged in the hellish crucible of the Zorgon invasion, hammered on the anvil of 100 desperate battles. Outgunned, outmanned, they'd endured. They'd learned, adapted. And now, at last, they had a chance to truly strike back. This is it, people, she said softly, voice thrumming with repressed energy. Our shot. We know the Zorgons are massing for a final push. One overwhelming assault to snuff us out once and for all. She tapped the glowing schematic, map lines flaring to life across continents. And now, thanks to Budapest, we know where and when. We know the linchpin of their entire Earth-side network. She looked up, pinning each of them with a gaze that seared and inspired in equal measure. It's time to set a trap of our own, to lure those alien bastards in and show them what real conquest looks like from the wrong end of the gun. The assembled soldiers leaned in, faces painted in the shifting light of alien holograms. Hard faces, scarred faces, but each alight with a terrible, unquenchable hope. This is going to be the fight of our lives, Reeves said plainly, no hint of doubt or fear. Everything we've bled for, everyone we've lost. It all comes down to this. She laid her hands palm down on the table, human flesh on alien tech, a symbolic union, a line drawn in the sand of the stars. We stand here, on the brink, the last of a free Earth. If we fall here, humanity falls with us. Our species, snuffed out like a candle. Her voice lowered, thrumming with conviction. But if we prevail, if we can break the back of the Zorgon forces here, on our ground, then we have a chance to ignite a spark that will catch across the galaxy, to prove to every subjugated species that the Zorgons can be defied, that they can be beaten. She straightened, seeming to fill the very cavern with her presence. I'm not gonna lie. The odds aren't good. The price will be high. But this is a chance for our names, all our names, to echo in the memory of every free being yet to come. This is our chance to make the Zorgons regret every last step they took on this green Earth. With deliberate motions, she picked up her battered rifle from the table. The holograms danced over its scored surface, merging human steel and alien circuitry. Load up. Check your weapons and your mates. Spare nothing. Risk everything. We move out at dusk to spring the jaws of our trap. Rest now. There will be plenty of time for sleep in the dirt if you fall. She grinned then, a death's head rictus of challenge and defiance. If we go down, we'll go down clawing at their throats and blistering their ears with our war cry. We'll teach them the wrath of a species with its back to the wall. The warriors roared their assent, a sound to shake the very heavens. Humanity, shouting its defiance to an uncaring cosmos. Remember this feeling. Remember this moment. We stand here at the crux, and we choose to fight. For each other, for our world. Her eyes, alight with sacred fire, found each of them in turn. For Earth. Invincibility shattered. The trap was set. In the shattered remnants of what had once been the thriving port city of Gansk, the last dregs of Earth's resistance crouched amongst the rubble, waiting, like coiled snakes, for the tread of alien feet. Reeves lay prone atop a collapsed overpass, her rifle trained unerringly on the broken street below. To her left and right, stretching into the dusty gloom, her soldiers did the same. They hardly dared to breathe, knowing that this was their one shot. Miss this chance, and there likely would not be another. Steady, she sub-vocalized into her throat mic, her words a ghostly whisper in the ears of her warriors. Wait for my mark. Let them get in close. In the near distance, the distinctive thrum of Zorgon lifters shuddered through the broken concrete. They were coming, just as the intel had promised. Coming to crush the last bastion of human resistance in a final, irrevocable hammer blow. But the aliens had grown complacent in their seeming invincibility, grown sloppy and overconfident after a relentless string of routs and seared earth victories. They had forgotten, as tyrants often do, that there is no more dangerous foe than one with nothing left to lose. The first Zorgon vanguard stalked into view, their arrogantly unshielded flanks bristling with the sleek menace of plasma cannons and grav mortars. Behind them, rank after serried rank of the insectoid soldiers marched in perfect, sneering lockstep, a phalanx of certain triumph. Reeves bared her teeth in a silent snarl. That certainty was about to change. Her finger caressed the trigger of her rifle with a lover's touch, crosshairs steady on the lead Zorgon's curved helm. Around her, she could feel the coiled tension of her soldiers, a bowstring stretched to the breaking point. The Zorgons reached the center of the ambush killbox. The trap yawned wide, jaws hungering. Reeves depressed the trigger. Now, with the crack of her shot, all hell erupted in the streets of Gansk. 1,000 human guns roared defiance, a thunderous cacophony of retribution pent up over years of brutal subjugation. The Zorgons reeled, their front ranks shattering under the unexpected onslaught. Ichor sprayed across shattered masonry as high-caliber rounds tore through chitin and exoskeleton with merciless force. And then the heavy weapons opened up. Haskins and his team had not been idle in the lead-up to this final gambit. Toiling ceaselessly through sweat and tears, they had reverse-engineered and repurposed the Zorgons' own fearsome armaments. This was no longer a guerrilla action. This was war. Searing lances of repurposed plasma sliced into the milling alien ranks, sowing instant carnage. Grav mortars, once the bane of human hardpoints, shrieked overhead to fall among the Zorgon rear echelons with devastating effect. The aliens, so smug in their dominance mere moments before, fell into disarray at this shocking reversal. Overlapping shields snapped into place far too late as they scrambled for cover that didn't exist. Reeves was moving even before the first salvo impacted, vaulting over the lip of the overpass with predatory grace. All along the line, human soldiers did the same, pouring from shattered windows and collapsed sewers in a vengeful black tide. Among them, exo-armored troopers wielding scavenged Zorgon claws and augmented human muscle crashed into the alien lines like freight trains of pure retribution. It was a glorious madness, a primal scream of defiance and murderous catharsis. At the heart of the maelstrom, Reeves slammed into the first Zorgon barricade with bone-jarring force. Her rifle blazing on full auto, she shredded their blistered energy shields with a relentless storm of tungsten. Around her, the battle devolved into a seething, point-blank charnel house. There was no elegance here, no precise tactics or lofty field manuals. This was a bar brawl in the gutter, a knife fight in a back alley. Mayhem and bedlam, the currency of pain and atonement. Both sides tore into each other with a savagery unseen in all the long annals of human history. Zorgon warriors, once so terrifying in their armored might, fell like squalling children before the berserk ferocity of an army fighting for its very survival. Reeves lost herself in the red mist of battle, her world narrowing to the bark of her rifle, the crunch of chitin under her booted heels. She pushed ever deeper into the alien ranks, desperate to reach the Zorgon command center, desperate to find Solfar. A sudden blow sent her sprawling, rifle skittering away across the rubble. She rolled desperately to her feet, gauntlets up in a boxer's stance as a towering Zorgon champion reared above her. Its armor was scared and pitted, crackling with barely restrained energies. In one clawed fist, it clutched the helmed head of a human soldier, ripped free in a spray of viscera. Die, ape! It snarled through a mouthful of razor fangs, and let your pathetic species embrace oblivion." Reeves grinned a crimson grin, blood on her teeth. "Sorry," she spat, drawing the human's embattled sword at her hip with a steely rasp. "We're no longer accepting extinction today. Request denied, you chitinous bastard." With a defiant roar, she launched herself at the towering alien, the sword of her ancestors a silver blur. The Zorgon tried to bring its crackling power claws to bear, but Reeves was inside its guard in a heartbeat. Her first slash sheared through its thorax in a spray of ichor, her second a blinding riposte that severed its sword arm at the elbow. The alien staggered back, hideous insectoid features slack with shock. It made a gurgling clicking sound, ichor bubbling at its mandibles. It took Reeves a moment to recognize the alien sound for what it was.